So over the years, I put a lot of work into making pizzas, I guess. Really working on the dough. Because to me, the dough is where it's at. Like, the sauce is just as important, I guess, and the type of cheese you use. But for me, mostly the dough is where it's at. Like, if you don't have a solid foundation for your house, it's not going to be built well. So, there you go. I decided to use a different type of flour this go around. I usually use all-purpose flour, but this particular flour is like a high gluten flour, I'm gonna say. I used to think this was like a myth, or not a myth, but I didn't really believe it. They would sell like this piece of flour I used to see, and I was like, this stuff ain't no good. It's really good. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. You'll see throughout the rest of the video, but it's really good. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the protein count or what it is, but it worked out. So here we gotta start out with the yeast mixture. You'll see me using my Happy Girl Sunshine scissors. I couldn't find my regular kitchen shears, but this yeast. Let me tell you about this yeast. Now, normally when you see people do this recipe, they'll use one full packet of yeast. I've learned to stop doing that because yeast will give your bread or your piece of dough or anything else that you're baking from scratch using yeast, it will make it taste like beer. That's the best way that I can explain it. If you never tasted beer before, yeast tastes like what it smells like. So I normally use half a packet of yeast. I never use the full packet. Now, if I have to substitute for extra, I'm going to say CO2 for your bread, I always substitute with like baking soda because you can't really pick that flavor up. And at the same time, it doesn't always work with the baking soda because I think it's a longevity thing. Baking soda is not really meant for that. I substitute it anyway. But I use half a packet of yeast, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 cups of water. Now, this is the basic ingredient that I use for my pizza dough starter. I've over the years learned to use olive oil for like crispness. I would sometimes throw an egg in to just kind of help brown the crust because, believe it or not, having an egg already in the dough will do that, which is interesting. But this was like the bare bones. I actually got this recipe off of the back of a packet of flour that I bought when me and my wife first got married, and I was like, I want to try this. Now, I've been making pizzas before then. My very first pizza that I made was, I think I was like 14 or so. It turned out terrible. But anyway, that's it. So I failed to mention that you need warm water for this, not cold water, because the yeast won't activate in cold water. Now, after you mix your yeast, sugar, and water mix together, you're gonna let it sit for about 30 minutes or so. You'll start to notice these bubbles or foam forming at the top of the mix, and that's how you know it's ready to go. So once it's ready to go, I don't have the exact measurements for this. I just go little by little. I start off with at least a cup and a half of flour mix, and then pour as I go. I actually know the right consistency to look for, so you're going to be looking for a loose rubber ball filling, if that's the best way to put that. Maybe something that's not sticky, but it's still pliable enough for you to fold and knead. Then at this part, this is the most important part, because first time I did it, I actually ended up having to redo the whole dough thing. But make sure you add a little bit of olive oil to the top of your dough, and you're going to cover it with plastic wrap. Don't cover the bowl, but put it right on top of the dough. I forgot the reason for that, but yeah, do that. Now, this part I'm gonna actually make the sauce for the pizza, and it's a little different from what I used to do it. I used to just mix everything together and let it boil, but tomato paste creates a huge mess if you don't have a lid on it, and then if you're not paying attention to it, you could burn the bottom of it. So now what I do, I add water first, and I actually boil the spices together. Then I add my tomato paste, and I add a little bit of sugar to it just to kind of help with that metallic-y aluminum taste. Kind of gets rid of that.
Do you think looks are important?
No, I don't think so.
What about money?
Now at this point, your dough should have doubled in size within this 30 minutes. Normally, I would let it rise 30 to 45 minutes, I would say, but your dough should have doubled and actually kind of soften up just a bit. And it's actually going to be just slightly sticky to the plastic wrap. But because of that olive oil that we poured on top of it, it's not going to just right off the back stick to the plastic. Now, what you got to do with this stuff is you take it and you flour the counter just like I'm doing. And you're going to take the bowl, you're going to flip it over, get all the dough out. And then we're going to do a knead and press method. Now, I know you might have seen, what is a good example? I don't know, I'll take Tom and Jerry for example. I remember there was an episode back when I was little I used to watch. They used to come on Cartoon Network all the time where they were baking bread. Or Tom was baking bread or Jerry was baking bread. Somebody was baking bread. I can't remember exactly. But what they would do is that they'll take the dough and they'll just beat the life out of it. They'll just punch it, hit it with the rolling pin. You don't want to do that stuff. We got to be gentle with this stuff because we want to build gluten, but we also want to keep the dough's strength. And beating it like that can actually make the dough weak, if that makes sense. Anyway, what you're going to want to do here, you're going to want to take your knuckles. You can ball your fist up. That's the best way to get the most even amount of pressure. And you'll see us do that method here. and you want to roll your knuckles over every part of the dough. Now, once you roll your knuckles over every part of the dough, just kind of pushing that air out gently, just a little bit. You want to fold, and then you want to fold again. So you're gonna fold once, then you're gonna fold twice, and then you're gonna knuckle again. I normally do this about 4 times before I start rounding out my pizza dough.
What about money? Do you think looks are important?
No, I don't think so.
What about money? Looks are important.
No, I don't think so.
What about money? About money.
Instant communication. Telephone.
Check. 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 Check.
Telephone.
Check. Check.
Instant communication. Telephone.
Check. Check.
Instant communication. Telephone.
I had no knowledge of what it was I wanted to do. I just kind of wandering around.
First of all, it's impossible.